You got to find your people, we sing regularly. We just did it. That's our theme for today as we are working through that mission statement that we wrote and adopted last January and February, March. You are here. What is it you're hoping to find? I'm guessing since you chose to come to a church this morning that you want to find out something about God. But because you chose this particular church to come to, I'm also guessing that you're hoping to find your people. If you're new here, and there is always at least one person, but usually more than one person who are new in this space almost every week of the 9 years that I have been here. So if you're new, you're not alone, I promise. You are looking around to see at least someone who looks a little like you or someone you might want to hang out with to see if this is a place where you would find your people. You're hoping to find maybe your adult friends. Unless you're not an adult yet, you don't need to look for them yet. And honestly, it's hard to make friends as an adult. If you're not an adult yet, nobody tells you that. I'm going to tell you now. Hold on to your skills of making friends, because it's hard when you get out of college. Everybody agree with me about that? But when you do, you find it's the group of people that you can hang out with and feel okay in. It's the people you commit to supporting. It's the people you can talk to God about, I hope. It's the people you can count on when things get hard. It's the people you can celebrate with. It's the people you can be real with. For those of you who were here last week, we had worship out on the patio, out on the patio. Or maybe if you've read my bio on the website, you've heard me talk about the first time I came to Spirit Garage, which was in about 2002, not as a pastor, just as a participant, and how they sang the song Ice Cream by Sarah McLachlan. And I thought it was just perfect. God through the senses, and they were singing it during communion. I talked last week about how the words are like, God's love is better than ice cream, better than anything else that I've tried. God's love is better, your love is better than chocolate. But this is the important line for this week, I think. Everybody here knows how to cry. I remember looking around that room on that day, which was Theater Garage, way back in that time. Everyone here knows how to cry, and I thought, yeah, I don't know any of these people, but that is the Lord's truth about all of them. As I looked at all those strangers, maybe one of you was there that day. There's at least probably 10 people in this room who could have been here on that day. But whether that on that day in 2002 or today, we've all been through it. That's true. And we all know how to cry. And I mean, that's it, isn't it? A place, you need a place where not a place where everyone's crying all the time. That is not what I am looking for at all. And I promise to do my best to make sure that that doesn't happen to you every week when you come here. But where we all know that we've been there and you don't need to hide it. Because we belong here, all of us, in this quirky, creative, and curious place. And maybe this place is just a little different than all the other places that you have connections to because of the common thread that I believe we are all holding here is a belief in God or a desire to believe in God, a God who created and loves all people, that specifically, and all means all. And we're all here to find out something about God, and we're here to find out something about our purpose, and we're here to find out something about how to be the best neighbors. And we are the people. And Jesus says, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there. So Jesus is there with us too. Today's reading from Acts gives us this beautiful picture of the earliest church. I can tell you that if you go on to read Corinthians, it doesn't all stay that way for all of the communities. But in Acts, we get this great picture of the early community that said they devoted themselves to one another. They held all things in common. They shared what they had with anyone in need, and they broke bread together with glad and generous hearts. They would be accused of being a certain kind of political party, I'm sure, but it sounds good for a Christian community. Notice that what made the early church remarkable wasn't simply what they believed together, it was how they belonged to one another. Jesus had prepared them for exactly this. In John's gospel, you heard today, it says, "I no longer call you servants, but friends." Friends. And then he sends them out with one command: love one another. They weren't told to get together on Sundays to worship, though I'm glad we do that. And they weren't told even exactly what to believe. The way is what you believe, whatever that would be. They were told to love one another. Actually, I think that's the way. I think that's one of the most beautiful things that can happen in a church. Because here's what often happens in churches. When life gets hard, people disappear. Someone gets divorced, someone loses a job, someone falls off the wagon, someone enters treatment, and because they're embarrassed or ashamed or exhausted, they stop going to their church. Sometimes people then end up coming to a church like Spirit Garage because they know that the people here, well, they don't know you, so they won't be looked at in the same way. But that was the earliest thing that I noticed when I became a pastor here, is that I would see people who were coming by themselves and could look and think, someone's got a divorce on the horizon right here. And that happened a lot back in 2018 and probably still today. Those are exactly the moments when you need your people the most. If we're going to do this right, this has to be a place where people can be real, where we know that everyone here knows how to cry, a place where nobody has to hide the hard parts of their lives. Here are the moments when I know that we've gotten it right. When I'm in a group of people that's been called together for someone who wants this group of people to know that they've received a hard diagnosis and they need people's support. They're not ready to tell everyone yet, but they want this group of people to hold them. And it's more than just the pastor who knows. I hold all kinds of things for you too, but it's a stronger community when we're all holding each other and you're holding each other's hard stuff. When I set up a meal train and the spots fill up quickly and someone who can't stand for as long as they normally can or doesn't have the energy or the time because of whatever's going on with their lives at that time, that's when I know we're getting it right. When I overhear band check-ins, and I know that there are people who have been caring for each other and getting through life together, sometimes for decades. When I see people making plans to get together outside of worship, like you could do today when you talk about, when are you going to lowbrow tomorrow night? When people know each other well enough to know what is happening in their lives outside of church, what they do when they're not there, when you know how to ask something more or say something more than just the peace be with you that we do, which is also important. Peace is important. What you do, who you go home to, or if you're flying solo, or what movies you like, and more. Yesterday, in fact, I got a text message from one of you who was like, I don't know what this other member's phone number is, but I know they like this band, so could you forward this to them? And we played a little telephone through texting. When someone is checking in with someone about a thing that's happening in their life, when one member notices another member isn't wearing a warm enough coat and then buys one for them, when a new person shows up and immediately during this long passing of the peace that is so long for people who are brand new, but there's someone who goes up to them and says, peace be with you, have we met before? And introduces themselves and says, welcome to Spirit Garage. When someone sees a need and just does the thing. And all that takes a little bit of openness and a little bit of courage and a willingness to be known and sometimes inconvenienced and to give and accept help. And honestly, the accepting help is harder than the giving of it, right? And all that doesn't happen when you just first walk in a room. So we're going to start practicing in a couple of different ways. The first way is, as we've been going through this mission statement, I've created, okay. Jen, can you forward all the way to the end? Created a survey that is living the mission statement, because if we're going to live it, it has to be like, we have to figure out how all of us can do it. So I'm asking you to think about, oh, I think you need to go back from there to the place where the announcements are, and you're looking for a slide that's called the Living the Mission. Yeah, he's got to start it again. So it has sections in it. And the sections in it, if you get your phone out and check it out, there'll be a section on what ways you're willing to show up to find God, what ways you're willing to show up to find your purpose, what ways you're willing to show up to find your people, and what ways you're willing to show up to find your neighbor. And of course, as we keep saying, one of those always leads into the other. You show up to find God, and you will find your people. You will find your purpose. You might show up to do service and then end up finding your people or finding God in your neighbor. Or, I mean, they all just flow right into one another, which is why we've been excited about using the infinity symbol on that. So, yeah, get that captured, and we'll make sure it's in the email this Tuesday as well, and probably talk about it more than just that. And there's a spot for you to include things that I might not have thought of when I was creating that survey. And then the other thing I'm going to make you do is practice in another way. I know everybody hates it when I do this, and then they have such good experiences, right, Bev? Yep. So I'm going to make you turn to a person, preferably the person you know the least in the room. That's your challenge. The person you know the least in the room, and I want you to, for a few minutes, talk about an unlikely friendship that you've had with someone, maybe someone who's from a different generation or a different walk of life or a different friend circle, etc. And just think for a little bit about how you became friends and what you learned from that connection. The person you know the least in the room. Go. Okay, let's hear from 3 people, just something that stood out to you in your conversation about that. You don't have to repeat the whole conversation. It was friendly. Okay. Who else has something that stood out to you in your conversation that you want to share?
There were a lot of similarities in how we met our friends, even though we've known them for a lot different amounts of time. And that was really interesting to me. Like, both of us met some of our best friends in like early elementary school.
Yeah.
And like the fact that that carried through for both of us was really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I read a poem at our open mic night about that last night. I call it 12. The people who've seen you through like all the phases. Who else? Ooh, Anne.
Thank you. It might be uncomfortable at first, but then it's really rewarding to meet someone new and get to know them a little bit.
Yes, good, thanks. Yes, thanks for being courageous today, everyone, especially if you're new here to go through this experiment. One more. Not one more? Oh, great, Debbie.
Well, it gives you a chance to find a new connection. So Devin was telling me he wants to learn how to play guitar.
Oh.
And I said, there's people here
Yeah,
that
yep.
could probably lead you to other people.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So it's finding other connections.
Absolutely. It's always fun when we find out a new person is a musician. That usually takes a little while to come out. Good job, Debbie. Good work, everyone. I'm proud of you. We practice it here so that we can go out into the world and practice it there too, because we know that that's how people's lives are saved, through connections to each other. This is how we're going to become the kind of community where no one has to carry hard news alone. where the meal train fills up, where coats appear when someone is cold, where your hair gets washed if you're stuck in a hospital for a long time, where tears don't need apologies, where people know they have somewhere to come when their life falls apart. May we become more and more the kind of friends that Jesus imagined. Jesus said, I have called you friends. And those friends became the community we read about in Acts. They were devoted to themselves and to one another. They held things in common. They shared what they had with anyone in need. They broke bread together with glad and generous hearts. And then they invited someone else. And then someone else. And then someone else. Until thousands of years later, somehow, that invitation found its way here, to this quirky and creative and curious community, to us, to this place where you find your people. I'm going to close with a prayer from Padre Gotuma, who writes about these things. Jesus of Nazareth, you met unlikely people in unlikely places and joined yourself to them in friendship. May we be like you in this way, finding friends at crossroads and bus stops, in queues and crises, in kindness and curiosity, because we, like you, need the company of others. Amen.